I will be showing you some automation suggestions and how to use MIDI overdubbing without erasing your previous notes, so you can make the most out of a small section without having to worry about overwriting stuff. This video probably goes along with a couple of other videos that I've made, and I will link them in the descriptions, such as recording modes and others. But straight from Mexico City, my name is Juanchis, and let's just jump into it. So I'm in Reaper, like nothing new about it. I just have one track, there's nothing too big to show. And the whole concept is that maybe you're trying to build a single loop of something and you're trying to improve that single loop of something. So remember, first you need some sort of MIDI item, and if you double click it, you will get into the piano roll. I have done a video on it and how underneath you can edit most of the mosquito. You can edit all of the CC lanes, and by default I see always a 64 because that's the sustain pedal. Sometimes you get some notes stuck, so you might want to see that one always. So in case you're programming some sort of keys, you might want to turn it on and off, just as a keyboard player would, if you're trying to get that natural feeling on it. But let's suppose for a moment that you don't have necessarily huge MIDI controllers at your disposal. And of course, I will show you different ways of doing this. It doesn't matter if you have a MIDI controller or not. Let's just suppose for a moment that you have a couple of chords already down on your session. And in case you already have some keys, and you might want to start like dropping some melodies on top of it, you might want to use this option, track set track record mode to MIDI overdub. Or that could be, or you can just right click the arm button on the track, record MIDI overdub without replacing, like just MIDI overdub. This means that these previous notes that I played won't be replaced as I play along with new stuff. That's a silly melody, but that should work. As you can see, my MIDI was not replaced. If I set up the other type of MIDI recording, I will just get my MIDI replaced. And now I have a new take, or it's simply being overridden, and then it doesn't make any sense. Sometimes you want to layer stuff. Maybe you're slower like I am, and you might want to do stuff one by one and not start playing with two hands everything, because some of us can't, and it's all right. Let's suppose that you want to add a little bit of more expression into this. You might want to add some automation into the track. So if you want to add a small layer of expression, you can't just overdub these parameters, because let's suppose I'm trying to open up the filter and I don't necessarily have macros assigned to my patch or my preset. What I want is to be able to record the movements that I'm making on my plugin. So you have different options here. You can go up top right and change the mode of your session. Why is this not showing up? Okay, so OBS decided to go crazy on me, and I'm not going to waste time on specifically that. Oh, here we go. I don't know why this was bugged out. So you can right click up top and you can change to touch mode. That way you can even set up the beginning of any parameter. So I'm going to make search super small, and I'm just going to move the cutoff, and you can see that instantly I got an envelope shown right there. And now I'm moving it with the MIDI controller, but I'll show you that later on the video. So now I can just hit play and start recording. And now it doesn't matter if the track is armed or not, because I can just hit play and start recording automation or movement from my plugin itself. Once you're done, you can go back into trim rhythm mode, and now all of the movement will happen. And it's as easy as that. Remember to just hit play, grab the parameter and start moving it. In any case, if you want to do some fine tuning because the mouse is maybe not as precise as you would like, most of the times you have some fine tuning of the parameters by holding Shift on your keyboard. In the case of Mac, I'm not sure if on PC it's another modifier between Control, Option, Windows key, or Shift, but at least on Mac it's Shift. So please double check me on that, and if you can, please write it in the comments. So even if you don't have a MIDI controller, you can just slightly drive it like here. Sometimes I know, like, I'm one of the big enthusiasts of learning how to do all of the envelopes and trying to make things work and try to make everything work from the patch itself. But sometimes some sounds are so much easier to be done simply by just adding automation lanes. Of course, you could also add something like automation for ascend inside of the synth into a delay, for example. And now the last parameter that I will move is the one that I'm trying to automate, like just drag it and move it around. And I usually use this shortcut for track view envelopes for currently last touch track. And I also have one for switching the modes of my track between touch and trim wreath. That way I can start automating without having to go up top and then going down. I can just hit my shortcut and it goes on and off. So I open up the envelopes window, and if I filter it by the last touch parameter, you will see that I have the send FX level 2 touched, and I will just click this once and it will show me a new envelope down below where I have the internal send FX2 of my plugin. On a video I did about look what I found on Reaper, I showed how to do all of these shortcuts of doing small automation lines. This short version of that is that I made some custom actions that go from 0, that's the middle of the line, to the minimum and ramp. And I just built a couple of custom actions using from the RIA pack. Remember that everything that says script or SWS is downloaded from the RIA pack. Add envelope points at time selection, edges from center to minimum. And there are a couple of other options. I took those, combining them with the insert 4 envelopes at time selection. That way I can just do small envelopes like this. I can combine that with another section, do something like hold it, and then I can just cut it abruptly, or I can do a small ramp down, and by holding Option on my keyboard, I can create a small slope so it fades out. So that would be playing something like this. Please look at this parameter as well. I'm going to make that send a lot louder, just because it's the 0 value. The 0 value is the middle of the automation lane over the envelope. So it doesn't necessarily get you to the point where you always need, but it gets you closer. And now I have a delay just built in. If you don't want to be drawing like this, and if you want to manually do the FX throws of your plugins, there's another option. Let's suppose for a moment I'm going to clear this envelope. And let's suppose for a moment that you have here some delay. And here I'm using Metric Halos Dirty Delay. I think it's fantastic. I love it. I've been using it for, I don't know, like 7 years now. They released their new version of their whole production bundle. I haven't updated, but like it's fantastic. Go check it out. So let's suppose this is on an auxiliary track. You create a new track, you load a plugin, then you just drag from the FX Sends section into the track that you're sending to, and by default it will be sending from the 1 and 2 channels of that track, of your source track, that's where your audio usually is coming from, into the 1 and 2 of the new track that's receiving, in this case, our auxiliary effect. Now, instead of having to constantly have this send at 0 level or at 100% the send, again, you just move that parameter once, open the envelopes window, you just look for send volume, and you will find the send and track envelope FX blah blah blah. You arm it, you make it visible, and you can start drawing in. If you're not if you don't want to do something like that, and if you have like a small MIDI controller that has probably like 4 knobs or 4 faders, because there are some generic stuff like that that could really improve your workflow and you don't have to spend hundreds of dollars in stuff like that, you can just switch to touch mode on your first track, go to the beginning of where you're wanting to automate, just hit play on your session, and now start writing manually with your mouse. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a MIDI controller, you can just start writing with your mouse. Just play back the loop and start finding small places where you want to throw the effect, and you can then fine tune it by smoothing the curve, and I will teach you with other stuff that I will teach in this same video. So I'll just play and start automating the level of the send. And this works more as a modulation because the send has to be beginning at 0. See, another way of doing it is you could just click it on the mixer and just change the automation mode, but like there are so many ways to get to one single spot. Or if you hold shift and then move while automating on the touch mode, you will automate the pan. And now I have a new envelope for that. In any case, if you just want to do one thing or the other, and in any case, if you don't want to be using your mouse, and again, you have like this 4-knob cheap MIDI keyboard, MIDI controller, you can just go to the action list and use this action, adjust last touch FX parameter, MIDI CC OSC only. And I'm using that one because what it lets me do is I'm going to move some stuff here on Search. I'm not going to keep on automating stuff that doesn't make sense. So I can just move, for example, the mixer here, and the MIDI CC that's assigned to my MIDI controller now takes over that. What you need to remember is that it's going to take over. So if my fader on my MIDI controller, it's at the bottom position and my value is up top, I first have to go up, pick it up, and then I can bring it down. That's the only thing. I'm pretty sure there are like different ways of setting that up so you can like start moving it and they start moving closer, but I like the pickup value. It usually works for me because I have to go to that place first and then go back. You can pick a fader, a knob, a button, or something. For example, if you're doing something like sends or stuff that are more like a state, you might want to use some sort of button in your MIDI controller. That way, you are just switching or toggling values of one thing. So for example, if I do this one and I hit it, it's going to move to one position. So with that thing in mind, you can also pick one single thing that will be your fader for all of your session of your last touch track. So whenever I'm just making balances, if I don't want to be using my mouse for everything, I can adjust my mixer using different ways. I can do like big movements just by dragging it with my mouse. I can last select my track and use my MIDI controller, or I can fine adjust as well by only using the notch volume of selected track up or down. In my case, it's command up and down. And I can just go up and down by 1 dB. And that lets me do like micro adjustments when it's really, really crucial, because the fader resolution is not as precise. The fader resolution is meant to keep me in the ballpark of big movements, and that's the whole thing that I'm trying to do. You can also add some other automation lane. For example, if you're automating the level of something that's coming up and down in the mix. And the way that I see it is I usually like to have my fader free. Fader free in the sense that I want to be able to adjust stuff using my fader again. So I have this other action where my track apply volume envelope to trim envelope, clear volume envelope is right on the menu. And now this is only the trim that happens after the fader. That way I can still adjust my track with my fader, and this volume adjustment is being applied without affecting my FX chain whatsoever. If you're automating any other kind of parameter inside of your plugins, remember that you have to be on the MIDI Overdub. The track has to be armed, and you can start adding CC movement to the track while writing it. And if your plugin has some sort of MIDI CC assigned stuff, or you have to connect it in any other way, you can automate the plugin either by holding the CCs or just setting the track to this write mode. And you can see it because it's in another color than the rest of my session. So let's suppose that you have 3 different sends for one single track for different delays or whatever you might be needing. So for example, I have my adjust track send volume MIDI CC assigned to the 3 knobs that are on top of my fader volume of my MIDI controller. And now, if you see up here, you will see that whenever I move my knobs, I'm actually moving the levels of that as well. That way, it's really easy to make some effects throws and just start adjusting the envelopes and automations when necessary by selecting time, using the reduce number of points, and then start like reducing the number of points as needed. Of maybe all points in selection, like however you might want it, so you can really adjust it. Start making slopes or use razor edits to start stretching or handling around your envelopes and automation, or doing some strange figures with it as well. If you like this kind of videos, be sure to check out the Buy Me a Coffee link down below. I have a ton of Reaper lessons, big workflow lessons. Next week's video is going to be like a much more thorough production workflow for how to handle your session over different stages of your production. If you like this kind of content, be sure to comment, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. And do all of, if you like this kind of content, if you like this video, I appreciate if you go and hit that notification bell, subscribe to this channel, leave a comment, or any of those things that people in YouTube say. Straight from Mexico City, my name is Juanchis, and thanks for listening.